The movie Bros is the first gay romantic comedy from a major studio featuring an entirely LGBTQ man cast, but unfortunately, it fizzled at the box office. The film star Billy Eichner put the blame on who? Straight people, who he said, especially in some parts of the country, just didn't show up. Is it fair to put the pressure on the consumer?
Oh, man. I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying because we've been having a lot of discussions culturally and in society that you got to put your money where your mouth is. And if you believe in gay rights and if you believe in normalizing gay love, go spend your money on a movie about gay love. Like, it seems pretty obvious. And then, so the fact that he's saying that the people didn't, I get his disappointment.
I understand that as well.
I do. The flip side is, though, this is a first in many ways. This is a huge deal, I think, for cinema, because we've never had a gay rom-com. And so in my mind, I think it's gonna be bumpy, it's gonna be imperfect. I think he's still cracking in something very new, and I think people still don't know what to make of it. And to be honest, I barely go to the theater, but if I go, it's for what I think theaters are increasingly being showcased for. It's those big blockbuster superhero things exploding. And this is a movie, I wanna support it, but I admit I haven't seen it in the theater. Will I watch it when it's streaming? 110%. In my pajamas, with all my junk food at home. Like, I will. So I'm a little slow, Billy. I will come to it.
I know that numbers matter at the end of the day, but this is still a monumental moment for people to see themselves, their love represented on the big screen, right? And we've become so obsessed with being number one, all the great reviews, but I am certain that there are people around the world who are grateful that they got to see like their love story told, right? So that's huge. But I agree, like going to the theater, something like this is a big blanket, my snacky snacks, and my PJs, but I'm going to the movie for action. Effects.
Yeah, it's too bad that we're in that world, right? Like that's where those big, huge movie theaters have kind of killed this sort of small town. Like you could kind of have. There's still those kinds of theaters are still thriving in certain urban centers, but they're fewer and far between. I just think though that I wonder if this is a problem with casting a little bit. Like we know and love Billy Eichner from like I mean he's been on the show I believe, and he's hilarious and we know this. But if this movie had cast like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Like, I think we'd be having a different conversation potentially here. I think back to Brokeback Mountain.
I was going to say Brokeback Mountain,
I mean, that was not a comedy by any means, but it did phenomenally well, both critically and at the box office. I think it was made for $14 million, and it grossed $178 million worldwide. So all people showed up to that movie. So
was it because you had two
big superstars?
They weren't big at the time. Straight big superstars.
Heath Ledger was pretty big at that time.
I wouldn't say that they were.
Okay, they're not
huge.
Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, but they're also
bigger than Billy.
They're bigger than,
I think it's hard to like compare because it's hard to remember who those people were. Were they household names at the time? They were not.
Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger
in 2005 were not household names.
Oh my God,
I'm gonna argue this.
Oh, I totally knew who they were.
There's no. We work in media. We're talking about like Chris Hemsworth wasn't even like super household name until well after he became Thor. I mean, we're talking about like everyone who doesn't work in media, the people who you count.
It's arguable. We're not going to argue this, but anyway, they weren't Brad Pitt status.
That was a word of mouth film, right? Like it didn't blow out in like #1 at the box office in its first week. It was one of those word of mouth films that everybody was like, you have to watch this film. These two young actors, Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams, they're so good. And it started kind of building and building and building, which is, I think, what Bros can do.
I was going to say, speaking of good, is Bros good? Because it's easy
very
to...
good.
Is it? Okay, so like, should we be blaming the straight folks? I don't know.
I think he was specific in saying the straight folks from a certain part of the country.
In the words of my favorite boy band, Billy Vanilli, whatever you do, don't put the blame on you.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.